WCLN 1170 Radio and Star Vision Cable Channel 16 are pleased to present We Should Know, hosted by J.W. Simmons, an upbeat, informative look at people, places, and issues facing our community. This education-based analysis of issues will remain positive and informative as we consider closely what we should know.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back. Thank you for listening to us today on WCLN Radio, Star Vision TV, also Channel 16. I want to thank Nicole for her wonderful introduction each week. I want to give a shout out to Tommy Jackson over in the Salemburg area, Salemburg Baptist Church. Tommy does a lot of good work over there. Give a shout out. He's one of our avid listeners. A number of folks listen to us that also listen to Robert Stroud's Boogie Shoes Network as well. A lot of those folks have emailed us, talked to us about what's going on and made some recommendations. We thank you for listening as well. We've got a very timely subject today, and I think everything that goes on in government, sometimes we get sound bites and get clips of information about it. We want to get a little bit more in-depth with a couple of our legislators out of Raleigh, North Carolina. Senator Brent Jackson, many of you have talked to Brent on this show, has been on before. Senator Jackson, thank you for coming back. Also, we have William Brisson. William, you tell me about you a little bit. Now, Curtis Brisson was a minister. I just mentioned to you that worked over here. Actually was a minister at Carr Memorial Church for a while. Unrelated, but yet related, I think is the way you put that.
That's correct. And, I found that if you meet a Brisson, he originally came from Bladen County, his family, I can tell you that.
So it might be that you're not directly related, but you may be some genetic lineage there.
That's correct.
A fine fella, he and his wife, Abby, that's been
Correct.
some years ago that they were there. And I know if there's listeners out there that remember that name, know him well, and he was a highly respected, and I'll use the word gentleman and underlined it. So.
Thank you.
Now, let's start with you. Tell us about you, how long you've been in the legislature. I know you're a farmer by background, and that's a very positive thing in this area, especially to our listeners. But tell us about you. We'll start with you since Senator Jackson's been on before.
Well, I spent 8 years on the Bladen County Board of Commissioners, and then I've been in the legislature. I'm starting on my 4th term in the legislature. I first my district, before redistricting, has been Bladen and Southeast Cumberland County. Now it's Bladen, Sampson, and portion of Johnson County. And Mr. Bell and I actually have all of Sampson County represented in the House.
Okay. So now, what kind of caused you to feel like you wanted to get in? You've got seniority over Senator Jackson on a number of years here. We'll talk about that in a minute, but you've got seniority. I mean, what caused you to decide you wanted to get into this? And now you are a Democrat in the House.
That's correct.
All right. Tell us.
Well, I'll be honest with you. When I served the 8 years in county commissioner, I kind of felt like that I had done it. Co-chaired, I chaired for 2 years and vice-chaired for 2 years, and that's done a lot of work and enjoyed working with the people, and kind of went home after 8 years and thought I had enough of politics, and people that I still had the cause, people seeking and wanting help, and so it's those just kept coming, and I said, well, I need to get back in position, or try to get back in position to help people. And it has been about the people, and it'll always be about the people with me. And as long as I'm in Raleigh or wherever I am in public office, it's about serving the people.
Sounds like you understand the word servant in politics very well.
I do very well.
Senator Jackson, thank you again for being back. I always enjoy sitting down and talking with you. Always up front, known you for a long time, way back during the community college days when you were a trustee back there. Tell us a bit about your step into the world of politics. Well-known business person in the area, agribusiness, and do a lot of exports. I've seen a lot of your products in Walmart, believe it or not. What caused a guy as busy as you are to decide, well, I need to step into this? Tell us about Senator Jackson, for those folks that may not already know.
Well, J.W., thank you for having me back. I appreciate the opportunity to be back here again, speak to you and our listeners that we have here in Sampson and the surrounding counties. The reason I got into the politics was because of agriculture. And And I seen that there was a need there, that the North Carolina Department of Agriculture had been getting cut in their spending for over 10 years, over a decade. And, you know, agriculture is what made this country. It's what made this state. It's certainly what fuels this county and the district that I represent, which, by the way, is Sampson, Duplin, and Johnston County for the most part. And it certainly fuels this district. And I just didn't like what I was seeing, the way that agriculture was being cut. And, you know, I think we've made a big change in the last 2 years, along with Representative Brisson's help. I mean, we had our Ag Caucus, and that has drawn attention to the agriculture in this state. And agriculture is on a high right this moment, and we're enjoying that. But there's a lot of issues affects agriculture, from regulations, over-regulations, as we've seen, and we corrected some of those issues in the last session, and we'll certainly be working on some more of those this coming session. Water issues is going to be a major issue for agriculture and this state as a whole, and I want to be a part to try and correct that problem.
I want to talk some more about those water issues later on, as we talk about gas and oil and offshore drilling as well as fracking here. But I want to start out, if I can, gentlemen, with something that's recent in the news. It's been there and has been tossed out, and it's the whole issue of unemployment. You know, one of the things that the governor just recently talked about is coming July, he's not going to do those unemployment extensions anymore, but there's actually two sides of that. One of our businessmen here in the area asked me, he said, well, do you really understand the other side of that? And that's something you guys are probably well familiar with, and that's the unemployment insurance that you have to pay as an employer. My understanding was, from what he was saying, is that his unemployment insurance had doubled the past year and going forward, and that his CPA had indicated that it had something to do with paying something on the federal level from the state that didn't get paid, and now folks are being hit with that. Another thing we don't want to see happen, and I think both of you guys will agree, we don't want to see business get hit with anything else. They got enough on them now with everything that's going on. Can we talk about that and what may or may not be some of the issues with that?
Well, we can talk about it. I'll be glad to, because I don't know if most folks realize, but the employer is the only one that pays unemployment tax. And currently we owe a $2.4 billion debt to the federal government, where we have borrowed, and as the old saying goes, kicked the can down the road for not just the last few years, but for several years now, as we've just continued to borrow as benefits run out and they were extended. You know, that had to come from somewhere. The federal government extended it, but at the same token, they lent the state the money. And our previous governor and the previous governor before that also just signed it and said, send it on. Well, it's time to pay the piper, so to speak. And so we've got this $2.4 billion deficit, and we've seen an increase in the employer's part, because the employer, as I says, pays 100% of unemployment. And in 2012, the starting of it, they've seen an increase from 2011. They've seen another increase this past January in 2013. And that's going to continue to increase until the year 2018 or even 2020 if we don't do something about it. And it can go from, currently it's at $21 per employee per employer, up to $180 to $190 a year per employee per employer. And so what the Republicans have proposed is, let's pay this debt off as soon as possible. But in the same token, to satisfy the employers, we have decided to work on cutting benefits as well. And I'll be glad to elaborate on that more as we move into this program. But I'll hush now and see if my counterpart here wants to jump in.
Let me return to Representative Brisson. Is there a sense here then that this has been going on for so long? Do you think there will be some aisle crossing and some support by the Democrat side of the House to support something being done about it?
I hoped that they would, because I was in a couple of meetings this past week, and I think you're going to see that bill surface. Could be as early as tonight on the House floor, and for the second reading, and then follow up tomorrow on the third reading. And I think it's a good bill. North Carolina Chamber has helped promote it. I've never seen the small business and all. I'm not hearing complaints with them. I think what it does is it gives them a cap on what it's going to cost them, so they know what their cost is will know what their cost is going to be, their actual cost, so it can fit into their budgets. When the way it was set up before, well, presently, the employers did not know what their cost actually was going to be, and it was a great concern to them. And when you don't know what your cost is going to be put in your budget, you don't know whether to hire or fire or to get the help that you need. I think it's the only thing that's going to turn small business around and give them the leeway to. Most of them are doing have their present employees overloaded. Be glad to hire, and once they get, I think you see the unemployment go down.
Well, as you both know, this area of the state, southeastern North Carolina, eastern North Carolina, is a huge agricultural base. And when you talk small business here, a lot of that language is built somehow around agriculture, either distribution or otherwise. When we look down the road and we see the unemployment being cut for people that are on unemployment, and that being cut, does that also help offset some of these costs and benefits? How is that going to impact? If people are not receiving money, they can't spend money. So is there a negative there, Senator Jackson?
Well, I guess you could look at it as one way as a negative, but they're actually spending borrowed money, so that sooner or later, as I said earlier, someone's got to pay the piper. And under the current proposal, there is going to be a quicker payback, which means less interest is being paid, because that's all we're currently paying. These increases we've had the last 2 years is just to cover interest. And that is only going to get worse as we move forward if we do not do something immediately. And as William has suggested, I think you're going to see this bill come up this week in the House, and then will be moved over to the Senate fairly quickly, and will be immediately probably passed is what we're expecting. But it's got to be some kind of give and take there. The employers are going to be paying more, but at the same tokens, those that are unemployed will be getting less after July the 1st.
And this just helps pay that off quicker
so
we can get out of this situation. We're going to take a quick break. We're going to be back in a minute and talk about some other issues. Ladies and gentlemen, stay with us. You're watching We Should Know. We'll be back in a moment. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back. You are watching We Should Know. We're on Star Vision Channel 16. Also, you're listening to us on WCLN 1170 AM radio. You may be driving down the road. You may be at home. If you've just flipped the TV on and you're looking at the program, you might want to call a friend. We're talking to a couple of folks that I think that you're going to want to continue to hear from for the next few minutes. And one of those is Senator Brent Jackson, and the other is William Brisson. William, you've been long time in the legislature, and as a representative, we just talked a little bit off camera about crossing the aisle. You're Democrat, Representative Jackson, Republican. I see a lot of media and news clips. It seems that the General Assembly, you guys are working a little closer than we see on the federal level. What do you think is the reason for that?
Well, I think, just looking at, and I always say that the Democrats and Republicans, that's the American way, and during election time, I think it'll continue to be that way. But what I've seen in the last few years has changed. The people actually, after the election is over with, I think whether I'm Democrat or Republican, if I win the election, they expect me to go to Raleigh and work with whatever or whoever I need to do what's best for the people that selected me and set me up there. So that's, and like I've said before, it is about the people with me, and I don't have a problem with it. I just think I think it's what the people expect, and that's what I'm going to try to do as long as I'm up here.
Senator Jackson, same comment.
Well, I agree with Representative Brisson. I mean, irregardless of who voted for me in the last election, I represent all the 190,000 plus people in District 10, and we've tried to. In my office in the first term, we were very successful at having an open door policy and trying to respond to the constituents in a timely and I guess quick fashion is what we sort of pride ourselves on. And it is about working across the aisle. So, I mean, just because I'm a Republican doesn't mean I have all the good ideals or all the bad ideals. And just because Representative Brisson is a Democrat doesn't mean we don't get along, and they have good ideals as well, and we sort of commingle those ideals sometimes and come up with compromise that'll work for all the people.
Recently, let's talk a bit about waste in government. Recently, the governor was on TV with the state auditor, Beth Wood, and Beth has been on this show before, very dedicated, hardworking state auditor. I think we can be proud of Beth. I'll give her a shout out as well. One of the things that was discussed, and she's been very much aggressive on for some time, is waste in government. And it appears Governor McCrory coming in, that's one of his big concerns is waste as well. The particular area they were looking at was DHHS, Department of Health and Human Services. What's your sense there? Is that the tip of the iceberg? Is there other areas in government that we're missing, that there's waste? And what should we be looking for from you guys to fix or help fix this thing? Either one of you. I'll open that up.
Since you mentioned Health and Human Services, I have actually been on that committee for 6 years and continue to be on the committee.
Just happened to notice that.
Fact is, I was appointed, and I'm the only Democrat appointed to appropriations chair of the Department of Social Services, and we have a brand new secretary. I think she's going to do a great job. We've sat down and talked with her a couple of times. The thing that she asked and what we generally talked about was what we could see as, dealing indirectly with social services for the last 5 or 6 years. And my number one priority is accountability. We just have not had the accountability that we need. Of course, the 6 years I've been up, but she is number 6 of the department, secretaries that's been appointed. So we hadn't been stable enough at the top to get set up and really focus on the things, the issues that we need to help. I'm not saying there's a lot of wasted dollars, but I'm just telling you that I know for a fact that the way we got the program set up, it allows a lot of abuse, and we have had a lot of abuse. And when I say abusing the system, I'm talking about billing for services not provided. And I think that Medicaid expansion, I know you hear people talking about, and I feel that there'll be money for Medicaid expansion if we can get the handle on, the abuse that we've seen with the other programs and get them set up. Make sure that we're providing the services that the people need and not maybe being billed for services actually that is not helping them.
And sitting on the committee that you're on, you get to kind of see some of this stuff up front, maybe that other committee people, unless they're on the committee, would not see.
I can assure you, and we meet, even though we're not in session, we meet once a month all year long. So we try to stay on the top of it as clear as we can and ask the right questions. The staff is always, Secretary of Staff is always at those meetings. And we just hadn't been able to get questions answered the way I felt like that we needed answering in the last. And maybe it's just too much changing at the top. But our new secretary, I think what'll help her situation, she's not coming up through the ranks. She's brand new. She'll be wanting those questions. She'll ask the same questions we've been asking, and somebody's going to give her an answer. I feel very confident of that after sitting there and talking with her a couple of times.
More of a sense of objectivity. One of the things that's happened in that area too is these managed care organizations now coming together and dealing with the Medicaid issues. Is that going to be a plus as we look at it more in a objective view?
I think it will. And in the 1915 BC waiver that you heard so much about in the last section, that's certainly going to be a enormous savings too when it gets off the floor and gets going. And we're supposed to be by July 1. Everybody's supposed to be in gear and ready to go. but those that'll be that's a big plus for.
Two things kind of coupled together here. Both of you can jump on this. Senator Jackson, I know you have some thoughts on it. Is one, the veterans issue, a number of veterans returning, that builds right into our unemployment concerns and issues. We have veterans now with some numbers are saying as high as 30%. Dealing with something called PTSD, which also you're familiar with, post-traumatic stress syndrome. We're also looking at the word sequestration again, which just simply means that funds are going to stop for military, a lot of military bases, a lot of military issues. North Carolina is huge in the military market. You've got one right here at Fayetteville, Sunny Point, Camp Lejeune, Seymour Johnson. I mean, we could go on, and there's probably all kinds of things happening. Where does the North Carolina legislature, what are you guys thinking about when you hear those kinds of conversations, and what kind of impact do you see?
Well, you know, the military is our second largest industry in this state, $20-some billion. And, you know, I think everyone that I know of in the General Assembly is certainly appreciative, one, to all the folks that serve in the military or have served in the military. You know, it's just a special feeling we have for them giving of their time and their lives and putting their lives sort of at risk. You know, that is a gratitude that I think most of us feel. And I don't see anything coming that we're not going to try, anything coming down the pike that is negative to North Carolina and our veterans and to our servicemen. We're going to certainly be fighting it full head on.
Well, and I know it's kind of probably not a good question to ask, because I don't know, well, anybody can look into in the general, you know, looking at what's happening in Washington. I'll just say both the executive branch and the legislative branch and try to figure out what's going on. I mean, I certainly can't, and I've heard other people discuss this that live up there. They don't seem to have any idea. But as we look at that, are there things that maybe the General Assembly can do here to kind of help save some things as it relates to military and some of the military issues for North Carolina?
Well, you know, in the previous session, this is getting a little more into the capital needs, but we set aside some money to buy buffers around these military bases to make our bases sort of a little stronger and a little more what I call military friendly. Mm-hmm. And that's what we were asked to do by some of the generals and the commanders in charge, was they want to secure that borders around these military bases so they know they will have this land available to them as they need to expand and have a buffer sort of between the military bases and also the residents that live in that community. So that was one thing we've done, and we enacted several bills last session, you know, that dealt with military when it come to driver's license and fishing license and hunting license, trying to make it as friendly as we could, you know, to keep those veterans when they retire out of service, keep those folks here in North Carolina, because we would love to keep them, you know, here and actually have them because they're all trained in some area of expertise, and it's great to have that experience, you know, readily available for the workforce.
And I'm glad you pointed out that it is a huge financial income to the state, as you indicated, number two in the state of North Carolina. Just, I guess, a quick question here. Is sequestration going to happen in July? Do you think it will go through and this huge billions of dollars just all of a sudden be cut off? And that, I know that's an opinion, that's very subjective, but just kind of get a feel for what you think.
Well, all I'll say is anything's possible. I doubt it, but anything's possible.
What do you think?
I really don't. I don't see the larger cuts that they're talking about. I just don't. Military's got to have a certain amount of money to operate with. I don't see even if we bring our soldiers back, you know, but going back to the mental parts of it that we're trying to, and most of what they're suffering through operates through mental health, and certainly the feds can't. The state kind of guides a program and runs a program for them, just like they do with Medicaid, you know, but the state cannot afford to pay all the bills, so certainly hoping that they don't back off of it.
We're going to take a quick break. We'll be back in a moment with Representative Brisson and Senator Jackson. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back. We're talking with Representative Brisson. We're talking with Senator Jackson. We're talking about issues facing the legislature, North Carolina, things that's going to impact you, your home, your community. All of these things somehow come together when we talk about budgets, when we talk about money, now's the time. A lot of these things are coming together. You see a lot of issues facing you in the coming months, and hopefully this program will help you kind of figure out where you stand on that. Very quickly, I want to let you know you are watching We Should Know. You're listening to us on WCLN, Star Vision Channel 16. This program is also uploaded to YouTube, so no matter where you are, probably by Wednesday, producer here uploads this to YouTube, so you'll be able to go on the internet, just type in We Should Know EDU, and you can see a number of the shows we've had already, and you can also see this discussion as well. Gentlemen, thank you again for being with us. Appreciate everything you're doing and taking the time to come and, as I say to people oftentimes, talk to the folks about what's happening around. One of the things, and we've touched on a number of issues, and as you know, I'm trying to get as many in as I can, but a big issue for us, and it's called immigration, but when you look at the numbers, they're astronomical. Just recently, I've heard numbers 11 million. I've heard numbers, Senator Jackson, as high as 18 million. We've talked about different kinds of ways to approach that on the federal level, but it has a huge impact for North Carolina, does it not?
It certainly does. Immigration is, I know it's a hot issue, but we certainly on the state level will need to address it. As far as seeing us get involved with lawmaking, whatever, you know, it's probably just follow up with the federal. But I don't know how we can continue, you know, to operate without some type of immigration. I mean, it's here. We got to deal with it. We need it. We need the workforce that it provides, and so I just certainly hope that whatever legislation we handle would not turn completely against it.
Senator Jackson, at least I'm not trying to dump politics into the middle of this discussion, but in reality on the federal level, we've at least seen that there has been a conversation about that the Republican Party as a whole needs to get more in touch with immigration. Latinos is a general word that kind of covers that area. In North Carolina, from a strictly political point of view, do you see something happening here that will bring closer alliances between Republicans and Latinos, or do you already think that's there in North Carolina?
No, I don't think we're there. I think we've made great strides in the last few years of trying to get there. But we have got to embrace the Latino community, as you say, and because they are, one, if you're just talking politically, they are going to be a huge voting bloc, and two, it's the right thing to do. I mean, we need those workers that are here. And all of them, you know, very few percentage of them are in agriculture. I mean, the majority of them are in hospitality industries or in the landscaping industry, which I guess you could say that's somewhat of agriculture. But they're in the restaurant industry. I mean, they're all over, scattered throughout the industries in this state and also this nation. But I think around 2 to 3% is all they claim nationally is involved in agriculture. Out of that 11 to 18 million, whichever one number you pick, I think you just choose one, because nobody knows at this point in time how many folks are here. I am really pleased, though, in the last few months to see the movement that we've seen in Washington, D.C. on getting together and trying to at least discuss this thing. And I think you're seeing the Republican Party as a whole begin to embrace that thought. And I think when the Republicans sort of toured the nation, especially in the agricultural nations, and worked with the hospitality industry, you know, they realized that those were the folks doing the work. Those were the ones picking the cucumbers or picking the cantaloupes or the watermelons, or those were the ones making the beds. Those were the ones cooking the meals in lots of restaurants. They're certainly the ones doing the dishes and stuff like that, and the list goes on and on. And, you know, I use this saying and have used it many times. Secretary of Agriculture Adam Putnam, now in Florida, when he was in Congress, young man, very intelligent, a rising star, in my opinion, of the Republican Party. When he was in Congress several years ago, he had as good a point on immigration as anything I've ever seen. This was about, I'd say, 4 weeks after Charlie came through Florida, you know, and they'd had 3 other hurricanes, or 2 other ones plus Charlie. And, you know, he said prior to the hurricanes coming, all he heard from the constituents at home was the illegals, and they wanted them gone. He says 3 days after the hurricane came through, he said they didn't care what nationality was putting that blue tarp on their roof. And so that point, you know, goes to point. We don't have enough workers here in the United States that will do the work, the miscute jobs, as we call them. Those, you know, they just won't do them. And so we have got to have some type of legal immigration system, guest worker program in this country. And I personally, from the state level, I don't think we need to enact any bills that would hamper job growth, and I don't think we need to enact any immigration bills until the federal level has made up what they're going to do.
Representative Brisson, I know you're on a couple of committees that look at services particularly, and we've just talked a little bit about one of those, Department of Health and Human Services. One of the things that oftentimes folks are touted with is that a lot of folks, illegal, you could use the word illegal or what have you, that there's been all kinds of confusion about what we're supposed to say with that, but they use a lot of services. And there's this sense, well, nobody's paying for that. They're consuming food out of the refrigerator, so to speak, and all the eggs is gone, and nobody's paying for that. What's your position on that from where you sit and what?
Well, and I know you hear this, they're saying they're paying no taxes, you know, but they are paying taxes. If they buy anything, you know, to purchase, they pay the same sales tax we pay. The food tax, they pay the same food tax we pay. So they are paying taxes. And personal property taxes, I mean, they're probably not, because not many of them own personal property, but if they own personal property, then sure they are paying taxes. So they are taxpayers. They are, most of them are construction workers, farm workers, low-paying jobs, and if they have families, that qualifies them for low wealth, you know, poverty, the poverty level. The kids go to our schools. Most of the children are actually born over here. They are American citizens, and it's our duty to look after those, get them to school, and we can't just not help them or not be part of it. You know, it's not our way to begin with. You know, I know people like to talk, but we don't want to see people starving and doing without either. So.
Well, now, both of the counties that you guys serve in Raleigh and that your constituents are from, it's a heavily populated area for Latinos, and as Senator Jackson just pointed out, you know, very strong work ethic, very strong family values. Do you get calls from those folks from that area of constituency saying, I need help with this, or I need to better understand this? I mean, I hear a lot of conversation, but I'm looking for some information from the people that we're talking about.
I would say, in my case, I would say one email or phone call out of 2,500 that I received.
I think that's interesting, and I maybe, what do you think?
It's basically, I was just, you know, just since you brought up the question, maybe I've ran into one or two on the street, or, you know, would mention concerns, but and we've had a few come up to our Health and Human Services and you know, to kind of stand up for statewide, but not many individuals, and you don't get that many emails. Just like, say, one out of 2,500 or whatever. You know,
I'd sort of like to lead off of this into the other subject, where I think, you know, I don't think that we should be overburdening our systems we have in place for the regular North Carolinian. But at the same token, we can't abandon those folks that need help. But we can get those accounted for, and that's what we really need to do is figure out a way to have the Latinos to come forward so we can account for them, let them pay their fair share in the services that they receive, just like you and I do. And I don't think they would have a problem with that. But from my dealings with the Hispanics, I have found most of them to be extremely conservative. They've been honest, they've been hardworking, of course. I mean, the work ethics are what ours was in this country probably 30 years ago. And, you know, we can learn from them on the way, the frugal lifestyle they live. But at the same token, they need a way that they can come forward without retaliation against, you know, what I call hate groups maybe, or even, you know, even our own governments. You know, to retaliate against them, but they need a pathway to come forward so they can get signed up, so to speak, as to being legal on the right path. Because currently it takes about 6 to 8 years to go down the right path to become a legal resident of the United States.
Well, Representative Brisson, it seems that there's a disconnect there just based on what you guys just said as far as the contacts with your office. Both of your offices, 1 in 2,500 emails. I mean, and I guess that would also include phone calls or what have you. How do we fix that disconnect?
Well, you know, certainly, and when we're seeing the disconnect, these people are the ones that, you know, that I see and out working mostly agriculture are very independent folks. I mean, they're willing to work. They want to work. They want to pay their way, and so I guess that keeps them, you know, from lining up and complaining. Mm-hmm. They're more or less trying to make sure they got the next day's work lined up. Absolutely. And I think if anybody's had any relationship with them, I think they have found that about them, and so it's you know. They're accepted. They fall in line with the programs that we have, and if they're eligible for it, then, you know, they should apply.
Well, we're going to continue this discussion. We're going to take a break, and we'll be back in a moment. Gentlemen, stay with us. Ladies and gentlemen, stay with us. You're watching We Should Know. We're on Channel 16, Star Vision, WCLN 1170 AM. Stay with us. We'll be back in a moment with two folks that knows what's going on in Raleigh. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back. The name of the show is We Should Know. We're talking to Representative William Brisson and Senator Brent Jackson, both folks that are looking after us in Raleigh, down here in Sampson County and a couple other counties that you represent as well. We've talked about a number of issues, and I want to kind of move to something that you really can't get away from. I know you guys were down here a couple of weeks ago, maybe it was last week, and had a forum in Clinton, and the conversation was education, and just reading some of the key points about that, Senator Jackson, it seemed to me that a lot of it was about how do we get money and how do you give us more money. Well, let's talk about it from a different perspective, and I'll use Governor McCrory as his comments at the Backer Growers Association. One of the things he talked about was bringing education and commerce together, and I'm trying to use my sign language like he was using. I believe that was kind of the way he did that, bringing it together to get people jobs, to train people and educate people for jobs. And he said that's almost kind of a must statement. It's one of his key 5 things that I recall him saying. How do you see that happening, and what is the legislature's role in that?
Well, I think the legislature's role is putting the laws in place. I mean, that's what we do, is we create the laws. And I think we need to continue to create laws that will merge both the educational system and commerce together, because if you educate, a perfect example, I'll switch gears right quick. Perfect example, they told in 2011, May 2011, only 1/3 of the attorneys that graduated in the United States had a job. 1/3. And out of the thousands and thousands, that was they're on unemployment or taking a job with less qualifications. You know, they're overqualified, in other words. Mm-hmm. But, you know, if we marry the jobs to the education or vice versa, it will all work out better in the long run. And I think that's what Governor McCrory is trying to do, is trying to get us steered in that direction.
Is there a vision across the aisle with that, Representative Brisson, as we look at that whole concept? Do you see that moving unilaterally?
Well, I agree with the governor 100% on that. But and we're talking about legislative doing laws. Actually, NC Spin yesterday was a discussion on the law, and actually there's a law that was put in place legislative did in 1991, and I don't think that they've ever had that meeting, but requiring the public schools and the community colleges to meet and work together on doing the same thing that we're trying to move forward to now, is making sure that we have job training set up and what we need for the children that's getting out of high school, moving on to college and moving out for the workforce. So we can do new laws, but if we don't enforce them, or put it in place where they are enforced, then we'll be at the same place we are today. So I think that the community colleges are willing to work, are willing to do their part. I know that all of, certainly our Sampson County, Bladen County, I've had close connections with those, and they are. So we can get, and I know that our school superintendents are willing to work. They see the need. They know it's great. They know what type jobs that we as Bladen and Sampson County is going to attract, the type of business, and they're certainly set up and want to get set up to train the workforce so that the industry will feel very comfortable coming here knowing that the workforce is available and that everybody's willing to work with them to make that happen.
Senator Jackson, you know, all of this ties back to funding in some way. That one of the directions and points of discussion has been tying the funding of the higher education entities, i.e. community college, universities, somehow tying that to jobs. For example, you remember as a former trustee, there was something called an FTE, full-time equivalency, and the funding formula was built around that FTE, which was basically equated to the number of people in the classroom and the number of hours. You had a divider. Well, now there's this model that's being somehow looked at, and I don't know whether it's even come to fruition, but it's been put out that the funding for folks at the community college level, university level, wherever education is somehow tied to a job. Not how many people you crank through the class, but how many people actually get a job. Somehow you're funded on that. How does that play out with you guys thinking? I'm sorry,
Well, back to your funding question, we're going to fund education. You know, there's no doubt about it. I mean, it's 56% of the state's current budget, and we will continue to fund it. I don't see no cuts forthcoming in the educational system, but it's a matter of using the money more wisely and better. And some school systems, like here in our home county, I feel like have used their money very well. They've been very efficient with it. They have been very frugal and very resourceful, thinking outside the box, you know, sort of moving around, shifting, moving things around so it would all work. And I see more of that coming as far as the funding being there, but overall from a statewide level, it's going to be looking at more efficient ways of doing things. And as far as the community college and the elementary schools, K through 12, they're going to have to work together, and they are. They're doing a great job doing that, and they realize we're living in a global economy, and that these students that are coming out of the 12th grade or coming out of the community colleges, if they're going further in their education, have got to be ready for a global economy. But we're also seeing more of a push to go back to vocational curriculums, and that's what we need. I mean, we were just talking off camera just a few moments ago. You know, plumber making $75 an hour, or, you know, electrician the same, and heating and air and mechanics. You know, those are things we need. I mean, but you know, they're service oriented items, and we need trained folks to do it. You know, there was one, I can't remember where it was at, but if you're within this district, there was a company wanting to move here, but they couldn't because there wasn't enough certified welders to do what they needed to do. And so, you know, that's something we can do as we move forward with the money we have.
Want to hit on some topics kind of quick, try to cover them as best I can. You know, I've had a number of folks on, including the Commissioner of Insurance a couple of times, talking about national health care bill, better known as Obamacare. I think the President claimed it and said so that was okay with most folks. If he wanted to claim that, he did. The state of North Carolina, from what I can read and understand, is not necessarily going to go through the model of building this base for national health care. How will that impact the average citizen, either one of you?
I don't see it's called Senate Bill 4, and actually will be taken up this week during the General Assembly. The Senate will certainly take it up, and it actually reverses what Governor Perdue done to some degree. It gets us out of the exchange, state-federal exchange, and I support Senate Bill 4 on that part of it, because bottom line is the federal government is going to back out of this thing come 2016 anyhow. They're still writing the program. I mean, you know, it's a work in progress, to say the best. And so no one knows exactly what the outcome is supposed to be, and we're supposed to sign on to something that we have no clue what it'll look like in 2016 when they start beginning to back out, and by 2020 I believe they will be completely backed out of it and turn it over to the state. So, you know, it's going to have major impact on individuals in this state. Whether it will be felt immediately is still up in the air. I think it will be sometime coming.
Representative Brisson, pro or con on that?
Well, I think last year was a good example in the last session that we had the state. The House did not vote to go with the President's Obamacare, and the state didn't accept it. So I don't think the House general feelings has changed on that. I think that we do need to sit down and look at all the options and try to make sure that we're providing the care that we can afford as a state to all the people.
Senator Jackson, one of your big concerns from day one, I think, in the legislature has been regulations. You talked about it, you just alluded to it a while ago. Regulations as it relates to everything from zoning to unneeded regulations. How are we coming along with that? And a lot of folks will look at regulations and they've started discovering out of that dollar they get paid, sometimes fees and structured regulations is just another way to tax people. Right. Comment on that.
Well, we're fixing to begin phase 2 of reg reform in the Senate, and we will. I think the House might actually be taking it up this time, the first time, but we're already putting us in. When I say us, I'm talking about in the Senate. We're putting our list together now of things we need to sort of. We've done it from the 30,000 foot level to start with, and now we're coming on down and getting right down to where it's really going to affect, the average citizen when he's trying to create a job or build a new business.
One of the things, Representative Brisson, that also comes to mind, and I'm just going to throw this out as a question and bounce it off because we're kind of coming down to the last few seconds here. I want to try to get this in. Can folks expect less taxes, less fees, more fees out of this legislature?
I think maybe not, maybe where it's at. I don't see it lowering or raising.
What do you think?
Fee is not a tax unless you collect more than the actual service cost. So I think you're going to see more fees coming in line with what the actual service cost. Some might be reduced and some might be increased.
Energy exploration, it's got to be quick. We're coming up to close. Energy exploration, fracking offshore, go or no go?
I think it's on go, but it's got can't be too quick with it. But I think the governor, everybody's in, I think, in agreement for the on go.
As long as it's safe, and I believe we will have it safe before we start, I say let's go get it.
And of course, we talked about gun control to death, so I think I need to ask, gun control should not be an issue in North Carolina, and the President's 23 executive orders are just that. So I'll leave that alone. I want to give you time for a quick rack up. You got about 20 seconds, and then I'm going to give you 20 seconds.
Well, I just certainly want to thank you for inviting me to be here, and it's always great to be in a position where I can talk to the people and kind of give them the message that what we're trying to do in Raleigh. So thank you so much.
Absolutely. Senator Jackson, we'll have you back. You done good, yes.
Thank you, J.W. Appreciate being here, and I appreciate the folks that listen to this show, and I appreciate the emails and comments I get from being on this show. And I thank you for the opportunity to serve the districts of the citizens of District Number 10, and look forward to doing the best I can.
Well, gentlemen, as the old saying goes, whether it's in politics or whether you're in the field, the work's always still ahead of us, isn't it?
Absolutely.
Absolutely.
And the devil's in the details.
You got it. Well, ladies and gentlemen, you've been watching We Should Know. We want to thank you for tuning in today. Next week, I'll let you know that Representative Larry Bell will be with us. We'll be talking about some additional issues from his perspective facing the legislature. Look forward to seeing you again next week on the radio.
Thank you for tuning in to this week's episode of We Should Know with host J.W. Simmons. If you have a question or comment regarding this or any episode, please send your email questions and or comments to jwsimmonsedu@gmail.com. And remember to tune in every Tuesday afternoon beginning at 2:30 for another informative episode of We Should Know.